So one of the big jobs in a woodland garden that one has to tackle from time to time is hard pruning of laurel hedges. And the laurel hedge we're looking at here hadn't been touched probably for 15 years. Huge growths had come up from the base of the hedge and they'd flopped over. They were flopping over the path, they were flopping over the rhododendrons beside it. So we decided to take some really quite severe action, and with the long-handled pruners and long-handled electric saw and a bit of ladder climbing, we've got up and cut all these main stems and shaped them up for the future. The prevailing wind here is from the east, the west wind goes over the top, so we're shaping the hedge so that it'll keep the maximum amount of protection, which is why we've only cut one side of it and not both. And this is quite a time-consuming exercise. A lot of ladder climbing, a lot of pulling and dragging. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't need to touch this again for at least 10 years, possibly longer. And meanwhile, all the plants along the side of this hedge can grow and thrive much better than they would have before. We save the larger bits of trunk for drying and use in fires. And the tops of the laurel we either chip and blow back into the base of the plants, or where there isn't room to do that easily with machinery, we have a small bonfire. So we're carrying along the old laurel hedge, and we're coming to a much newer laurel hedge that was only planted in 2007. So it's about 13 years old, and as you can see, it was certainly getting out of control. And here the pruning is much quicker and simpler, because you're not dealing with huge, great chunks. You're simply dealing with rather smaller 10, 12, 14-year-old growths. But it's still ladder work, and it still takes quite a bit of time. Again, we're only trimming one side of the laurel hedge this year. When this is reshot, as it will do vigorously next summer, we may well go around the other side and have a go at that. But the overall effect is that if the east wind blows this winter, one side will still be very evergreen and provide wind protection for all the plants on the other side of this hedge. As you can see, there's still a little way to go and quite a bit more to do before the job is finished. But it's one of those jobs in winter when it's cold and wet outside, it's quite good news to have a fire and keep a bit warmer. So as the fire gets going again in the background, you might just want to have a look at the tools which we're using to prune the laurel hedge. We've got very extended long-handled pruners which can only cut relatively small pieces but at a considerable height. The great revolution between now and the old days in pruning laurel hedges is this small chainsaw on the end of a pole. And this means a lot less ladder work, a lot less risk of falling off ladders when you're cutting things, and it means that there's a reach of around 15 feet when you include the height of a person, so you can get up to considerable heights and cut really quite large branches. And that's very useful too if you're pruning up the side of a tree, but for laurel hedge cutting it's an invaluable piece of kit, and one which didn't exist even 10 years ago in a fashion that you could use it properly and easily. They take a bit of getting used to, and you need to develop certain muscles that you didn't think you probably had, but it's a fantastic piece of kit.